According to new reporting from MS Now, Trump has directed his White House counsel's office to explore the feasibility of an executive order requiring proof of citizenship for voter registration and photo identification at polling locations nationwide, even as his own lawyers have warned the moves would likely run into legal trouble. To once again push the limits of his executive power and potentially rig the midterms, Trump is also reportedly leaning on the likes of Steve Bannon, Clayton Mitchell, and Kurt Olson, same cast of characters who tried to overturn the 2020 election. At the same time, the Washington Post reports today that pro-Trump activists who say they are in coordination with the White House are circulating a 17-page draft executive order that claims China interfered in the 2020 election as a basis to declare a national emergency that would unlock extraordinary presidential power over voting. Those activists say their draft order would allow Trump to ban mail ballots and voting machines. Now, to be clear, their claim that China somehow interfered in our elections has already been debunked, much like the other conspiracy theories that are driving Trump's nationwide hunt for the fraud he's been alleging, which, of course, led to the FBI seizure of ballots in Fulton County, Georgia last month. In fact, Trump has already tried to use executive power to rewrite election rules last March. That is, until a federal judge blocked key parts of his order, which she described as both unconstitutional and a threat to democracy. But that does not mean Trump won't try again. Congressman Jamie Raskin is back with me. It was Mark Elias who won that lawsuit against Trump that partially blocked his initial executive order. And he said today, this is Mark, if Trump issues such an order, we will sue again and we will win again. Do you think the courts act as a backstop here?
Well, I certainly hope so. I mean, you can't completely count on the Roberts courts, but, you know, there were 60 federal and state courts in 2020 who rejected every one of Donald Trump's fraudulent claims of electoral corruption and fraud. He wasn't trying to stop election fraud in 2020. He was trying to commit election fraud in 2020. Remember then when he called the Secretary of State of Georgia, Brad Raffensperger, and said, just find me 11,780 votes. That's not Donald Trump trying to block election fraud. That was him being caught red-handed trying to commit election fraud. He did the same thing with the Department of Justice, where he tried to convince his own appointees to say, just call the election corrupt and leave it up to me and the House Republicans, who were going to pursue the counterfeit elector plan cooked up by John Eastman. So everything we're hearing about today is an echo of what took place in 2020. Write me a memo. Explain how we can steal the election. Why? Because their policies are tremendously unpopular. They're plummeting in the polls, so they don't have a program of policies for the country. They're just going to try to shrink and reduce the electorate and somehow rig the electoral result. And so we are going to have to fight them at the county level, at the state level, at the national level, every step along the way. But the public needs to be asking Donald Trump, why don't you actually advance some policies that would get people interested in voting for you, as opposed to just trying to rig the election, which is clearly where they're headed.
Our colleague Vaughn Hilliard was bylined on that reporting from MS Now, and he characterized the president's choice to take this approach as almost not the most extreme option that he had been considering. I wonder, first, if you agree with that characterization, and two, what you think the administration's rationale was, right? If they said to him, listen, of all these crazy plans, this one is the most legally viable?
Well, first of all, the administration should take note from what happened in the tariffs case, where Donald Trump there, again, completely bypassed Congress and then purported to impose the largest tax increase basically in American history on the American people. And the court struck it down rightfully because he has no power to do that. Congress is the lawmaking branch. And in Article 1, Section 4, we've got the power to essentially amend what the states are doing in terms of administering elections. But it's totally up to the states. The president has no role constitutionally. Just check out the Constitution. He has no role at all in administering midterm elections. And so he's talking about suspending or canceling the midterm elections. It's all nonsense and it's fraudulent. We had midterm congressional elections during the Civil War. We had them in World War II. So we're not going to cancel them because Donald Trump's feelings might be hurt again, because there's an electoral landslide coming, repudiating his tariffs and his inability to do anything for the American people and the economy and so on. That's what this is about. So he's looking for his new John Eastman. He's looking for his new Rudy Giuliani, who will cook up some harebrained scheme totally at odds with the Constitution. And we need people to stand up for the Constitution because, one of the people who spoke to Trump about how fraudulent his theories were was his own attorney general, who told him that it was BS. William Barr said all his theories were BS. The White House counsel told him he couldn't do it. Well, now he's stuffed his administration with complete cronies, lackeys, and sycophants who will not get in his way this time. So this is why we do need the Supreme Court to stand up. Obviously, we can't count on the three justices who are basically acting like Pam Bondi and Kash Patel at this point. But let's hope that that six-justice pro-Constitution majority that we saw in the tariffs case will stand by the Constitution when it comes to electoral federalism and the power of the states to run their own elections without unilateral, unlawful interference by the President of the United States. He simply has no role in it. He's out of it.
Congressman, before I let you go, I do want to ask you about the news tonight that Netflix is backing out of acquiring Warner Brothers, which means David Ellison's Paramount's going to likely own CNN in addition to CBS. I know you've led a congressional investigation into the FCC regarding the Paramount-Skydance merger. What are the stakes here?
I mean, the stakes are high because, look, in the big picture, what's happening is that we don't have meaningful, aggressive antitrust enforcement based on the law. What we have is competing teams of lobbyists who are trying to see essentially who can satisfy the pay-to-play expectations of the Trump administration. And we've got to get back to the rule of law generally in America, and certainly with respect to antitrust jurisprudence. Donald Trump is presiding over an extraordinary consolidation of corporate power. And it's the corporations who are willing to play by his rules, pay him off when he sues them, sing his tune, that are the ones that are ending up on top. That is not how a free market economy should work. It should not be up to the president to anoint and appoint victors and losers, but that's what we've gotten into. So we need to restore meaningful antitrust law enforcement for the sake of consumers, for the sake of democracy, and that means we've got to get rid of Donald Trump's pay-to-play system of graft and corruption.